Hi everyone, welcome to week 3. Next week we'll move with some theoretical explanation, and this week, as you all know, we are doing Waves of Democracy. So, this is again going to be a short recording, and I'll just try to go over the readings. We have two readings for this week, and I hope we'll have a good discussion like we did the first week and the second week. So this week the topic is Waves of Democracy, and we have two readings, one by Markov and the other one is by Turner. So Markov is basically giving us the definition and why we call wave of democracy. So what we are actually seeing in the world is a specific region, the world in a specific time frame start to democratize. And I think one of the best example is the Southern Europe with Spain, Greece, and Portugal democratizing in almost like in a decade, and then we have something similar happened in East Asia and Southeast Asia, and then similar things happened in Latin America. Again, like in a specific time frame, specific regions getting democratizing. Of course, the question here is why we are actually seeing it. There are some multiple explanations, but one of the best explanation is actually, I think it is also in the reading. These countries are emulating each other. When one country is seeing the other one is democratizing and opening its political system, there is a pressure coming from the society of the next country to do the same thing in their own country. So then I think Markov is also getting into detail of what he means by democracy and what makes a democracy, and then he speaks about struggles. I think he counts 6 struggles, and he says unless we have none of these struggles in any society, there is no way we can talk about democracy. Even those countries have democracy, it's an empty democracy. So what are these struggles? The first struggle is the struggle for the authority of elected parliaments. So I think this is kind of the most important starting point for evolution of democracies that we have today. So when you go back in history, this is how English democracy started to institutionalize over time. And then the second struggle is expansion of the suffrage. Again, after countries start to have their parliaments that is sharing power with their dynasties, kings, and then these countries start to have electoral systems. So how are you going to send representatives to these parliaments? They start to hold elections, which comes with the suffrage struggles. And then the third one is the struggles to make power holders subject to the will of the electorates. So basically, this is more like an accountability system. The fourth one is struggle for honest electoral counts. So this is basically avoiding any kind of fraud in elections. This is why institutionalization of the election is very important. Then the fifth one is struggles for acceptance of organized political parties as legitimate social actors and contenders in elections. And then finally, we have the struggles to emancipate populations, which I think we can sort of think about the civil rights movements in the 1960s. And then I think one of the most important things that I find in Markov reading is when he starts to question how to explain this democratization waves. And I think he brings a very important perspective when he says the economic growth does not seem much of a protection of democracy. So I think this is a very important point because over and over again, many social scientists argued that economic growth is number one effect for democratization. Then, of course, when we start to have these uprisings in Western countries, especially when they have economic prosperity, then some people start to question the cultural aspects. So democracy kind of depend on unusual cultural characteristics, and places like Asia, Middle East, Africa actually lack these cultural futures, which is kind of a dangerous territory to get in. But we'll talk about those theoretical approaches starting next week. And then the Turner's piece is more about the catastrophes. So he actually counted 4 catastrophes that kind of affected waves of um, erosion of democracy. So basically, instead of looking at democratization, I think Turner more focuses on the waves of de-democratization. So the first catastrophe is 9/11. We just recently have the anniversary. So why is it important? It's important because following 9/11, the U.S. started the war on terror, and then the Patriot Act, which affected so many Muslim Americans, and we saw some human rights violations. And I think it is important globally because following U.S., there are so many developing countries, democratizing countries, started to use the war on terror as an excuse to go against the opponents, the political opponents, and the protesters. So this is one of the very saddening results of the 9/11. So the second catastrophe was, of course, 2008 global economic crisis, which was which had a big effect on various countries. I think no country was immune to the effects of the 2008-2011 economic crisis, and it came. I think it made so many inequalities and other issues, other economic issues visible, and I think so many different countries started to revisit the idea of neoliberalism following this crisis. The third one is the general crisis of the democratic states in the West, especially talking about the populist movements. I think here Turner pays so much attention to those movements. And then, of course, we have COVID-19, very recent one. So moving forward, we might actually need more substantive notions to measure democratic success or failure. I think this is quite part that I really liked in the reading, where he talks about the capacity of democracy to enhance the well-being of its citizens. And the well-being can be measured like Amartya Sen work, like the mortality or life expectancy. And if you're interested in those kind of things, last week actually the life expectancy in the US for the first time came out smaller, lower than the previous years. Some people argued that that was the effect of COVID-19, but also some others argue that the reasons are more structural than that. So we can also talk about this in the future. Maybe you can mention those kind of things in your discussions. So thank you so much, and I am looking forward to reading your assignments and your discussions for this week. Have a nice day.